Hello everyone and welcome back to Planet Zoo. In today's episode we're back in Saltwell Safari Park and I just want to talk about a few things that have changed around the back of this train station, mainly putting in some extended kind of warehouse buildings that are in these railroad arches at the back of this train station, just to kind of carry that theme on throughout and also bulk out the back of that building a little bit. Now I could develop them into smaller staff buildings at some point during the next expansion of this zoo, but we also have extended that area there and created kind of like an extended platform as you come out of the train station. Today's episode, I'm just going to have a quick look at something because I've just noticed the shadows on these solar panels. Yeah, they're kind of floaty, so I'm going to have to sort them out at another time. Strange that I've only just noticed that. Anyway, today's episode we're going to be building a combined meerkat and aardvark habitat that is going to have like a nice little fence and stuff, a lot of rock work and things like that, and just make this really nice, tight, compact area for these animals to be in. And I just think it'll kind of finish off around this corner area. Obviously, there's going to be a little bit of filler that I'm going to do off cam and stuff just to kind of get those areas working together a little bit more and have a nice even flow going from one space to the next. But other than that, this is going to be a really nice quick episode, and I had a lot of fun building this one. Actually, it was quite nice, a little bit challenging as well. So yeah, we'll dive right in to our speed build today. We're just going to start by doing a lot of rock work as we go around and make sure that this area is nice and neat. And the idea I had was kind of for this to do something using the burrows. So we're going to have a nice big tree with some smaller burrows for the meerkats. I'm going to be using an olive tree, one of the really large ones, and then sinking some burrows into the kind of like root work of those trees for the meerkats. And the aardvarks are going to have hobbit houses, basically. That was something that I wanted to play around with for quite some time, because those larger burrows, actually, you can turn them into nice looking little house type structures. So I was really looking forward to playing around with that and bringing in a favourite film of mine to the zoo. And I don't think it came off quite how I wanted it to, but I was still happy with the overall outcome. So again, just pushing our rock work around, and this area here is we're probably going to put a waterfall in here of some description so that there's some nice water features in there, and that'll be a nice mix of kind of natural and man-made stuff. So we'll be putting in our usual grids and stuff to make sure that it looks like the water's being generated by some sort of underwater pump and being fed into the habitat itself. Meanwhile, again, just building up our rocks again to make sure that there's enough of a differential between these things and it doesn't look like everything's the same. But again, nice, easy work to be doing here and just making sure that everything fits flat and flush against the rest of the terrain that we've put in. This was a little bit difficult because everything was a little bit boxy and I didn't have a lot of space to work with and expand terrain out and things like that. But a lot of like terrain painting and stuff went on here as well to make sure that everything looked like it should. And I was really interested to kind of do this habitat where you come in and you look down over it, rather than everything that I've got so far, apart from maybe the lion enclosure and the two-tiered penguin habitat and pygmy hippo habitat. You don't have a lot of this that's just in the zoo. So we moved on straight away to work on our houses. I say that with quotation marks. And this was a little bit tough because obviously it's still quite a small footprint that these burrows have, and I wanted to make sure that things were looking good. So they did go through a few iterations playing around with these Australia wood planks because I felt like they were the best ones to do. Put in a guide because they weren't quite sitting flush, and I realised that it's actually because some of these boards are a little bit warped in their design anyway. And then it was just a case of making sure that we had enough size here to put in some windows because I wanted to kind of make them look like these were actual houses. And yeah, it was a little bit of a tough one, but we got there in the end, and you can see me faffing on and playing around with multiple different like changes of the build and things. And then as soon as I put in the windows, once I finally settled on one, I realized that I needed a lot more space. Pulling this up just created a load of clipping issues, so I kind of had to do a soft reset of the whole build. In terms of these houses anyway, not the actual rock work around the whole building. But we do get there in the end. I have really enjoyed playing around with this one though, because it's been something different. And actually I had a couple of suggestions a while ago in reference to another video that I put out of your kind of like starting what animals you should have when you first start the franchise mode. And meerkats happen to be one of them because while they are carnivores, they actually do have a really cheap footprint. It doesn't cost much to maintain them, and they bring in quite a lot of guest satisfaction. The guests really like to see them because they're cute. So yeah, finally happy with the design of this. And then it was kind of, how do we put in a roof? Now, I could have gone with a whole terrain moving around thing and cover them over and make actual proper hobbit houses, but I think I'm going to save that for an animal that is more native to the locations of the Lord of the Rings films, because that's something that I've been really interested in doing, kind of creating the Shire, but having a small animal as represent the hobbits and make an actual fully fledged walk through Shire habitat type thing. That would be really cool. The Lord of the Rings is one of my favorite films, and it would be quite nice to realize that in this game, considering that it's doable with the tools that we have at our disposal. I mean, this does look like a slight representation of those hobbit houses, but not massively. Moving on now, we're going to put in our olive tree and put our new foliage in. This is exactly where the burrows for the meerkats are going to go. So they're just getting sunk into the rootwork of these trees. We'll have 2 burrows in there, and then we can start filling in our terrain. Now, I didn't like the terrain painting job I'd done here. It was mainly just to get the animals' satisfaction up because we'd put them in place. So this all does get a little bit of a redevelopment and a repaint. We sort out all of the textures and the grass work and things like that, because actually having long grass right in the center of this habitat doesn't do it justice at all. It masks far too much of the stuff that I want people to be able to see, and I want to be able to see myself when I'm doing camera pans and stuff. So I just thought that's not going to work at all. The next step was to kind of cover up some of the imperfections with some foliage. So we sunk a few trees down into the ground just to put in a load of like bushes and stuff and get some nice new foliage put in place here as well. Just making sure that there was enough to give these little nods to grass growing through the rocks and things, and other little bits and pieces. We also didn't want to eat too much into the footprint for the animals, who have smaller kind of requirements for the foliage. The one thing I didn't necessarily like about this was some of the greens here are really quite bright and vibrant, and other ones aren't so much. And especially with the actual terrain itself, everything stands out a little bit too much. So I needed to get a better blend with that. And I think that's something that I may look at later on and try and just redo things a little bit so that the harsh green colours are masked a little bit more with some of those darker greens, and it looks a little bit more natural. Because those nettles around the olive tree, you can really see them standing out, and I'm not overly keen on that. So we'd put some big bushes on this side. I was originally going to have the meerkat burrows go into some extra hobbit houses here, but that didn't really work out because those meerkat burrows are far too small to be able to do anything with. So we just extended some of the rock line further into the habitat and put down a few more trees sunk right into the ground to make it look like there are nice bushes there, and then a few other bits and pieces to tidy it all up. Next, I wanted to create a little watering hole and a waterfall, and it seemed like this was the perfect area to do it. So all I had to do was hollow out a little bit of a hole. I had a lot of trouble getting the water to actually work properly down here, and it was just a case of making sure that I'd hollowed out enough of a pond and made sure that there was an incline that looked a little bit more natural. So a little bit of terraforming there to be done, and then set some rocks in place on this side where the terrain was a little bit higher. But once that was done, it was nice and easy, and just a case of doing all of my usual work to get this nice and fleshed out. There's still a little bit more to do here, I think, and maybe on second thoughts and watching this back while I'm recording the commentary, I think I could come back in off camera and make a couple of adjustments and improvements to this one when I'm no longer recording. Like putting in a few more water features, maybe a bit of mist, maybe some falling leaves around where the trees are, because I think all of those things will just add a little bit more authenticity to the build. Because there is actually quite a lot going on here. There's a lot of enrichment in this area and a lot of like different things for the animals to play around with. And I'd quite like to make sure that some of the special effects that we use really flesh that out a little bit more. So I put in some more foliage and then merged a few rocks around here to make sure that there was a little bit more of a height differential to certain parts of the landscape, and to hide some of those trees and bushes a little bit better. And then over here we did a couple of rocks sticking out of the ground still. Again, I think we could do more here to make it a little bit more natural looking, because at the moment this does look a little bit like there are certain sections of it where rocks have just been thrown in for no apparent reason, and it looks a little bit like it lacks definition. Once we put the enrichment in, that lack of definition kind of goes away a little bit, but I think there's still more I can do here, and I will look to improve this and another time in between these episodes. Put in a food pit here, and I just wanted to cover that up so that we just had this kind of small foraging area here, and we're going to repaint that so it looks like soil and put in a few more bushes around it. I just think it's always a good idea to hide your foraging pits, because they are still usable when they're hidden like that, and you don't get to see the large kind of structure that makes up the rest of the foraging pit, and it's just nice to hide things when and where you can. Little bubbler for the meerkats to play with. I really like the animation that they make when they're kind of investigating that. And then I wanted to adjust the barriers a little bit, because over here I want to put in a few kind of planters and things that aren't actually suitable for these animals. So I needed to bring in the barriers to give myself the space to be able to do that. And then it was about sealing off this staff area. Now the habitat actually starts further back, and the anteaters can climb the stairs, but the meerkats can't. Now I am going to have a little bit of an issue with this, because of the fact that if any of the animals in this habitat get kind of caught and boxed, they will transport to the entrance of the habitat. The anteaters, it's not much of a problem, because they can actually navigate down those steps that are in place, just like the staff can, but the meerkats can't manage them. So the kind of solution to this problem is to either change the entrance of the habitat to down those steps where the staff area is, but that would then involve me having to put in a staff path, which I don't particularly want to do. I really like the idea that when staff are in the habitat, they kind of auto path around your habitats. And as long as they can, suddenly everything is a walkable surface for them, whereas when they're not in a habitat, it's just a path that they can walk on, which I think is a bit of a strange mechanic, but I'm here for it. I'll deal with that. So I don't really want to move the habitat entrance. The other option is to kind of create like a ramp that is usable by the meerkats on one side of the staircase, which, I could do. And I think that would be the thing that I'd do over changing the entrance of the habitat itself. Throwing down a load more grass and stuff here. I think there's a little bit more, again, I could do here, just to really flesh this out a little bit more. But I'm not too worried about it, and I'm quite happy with how it's looking at the moment anyway. Want to put in a roof. You are actually seeing in the background there that I've put in the fence, and that was just an extension job of the fence that comes round the corner by that new toilet block and maintenance shed that we put in place a long time ago. And then I just wanted to put in some supporting beams here, because I want to make sure that this is roofed off appropriately. I'm not really sure if I'm happy with the roof on this building, but it will do for now. It's just a glass structure with some supporting beams, and then this kind of top that kind of finishes it all off, I guess. And I quite like the glass up here. And in here, I was just going to put storage, but I ended up putting some bedding in anyway, just in case. Other than that, it looks pretty basic. I wouldn't change too much about it, though, because I'm pretty happy with how it looks. The only thing I would consider doing is actually putting a proper roof on it with, like, corrugated iron or something, and covering that in a layer of vines or weeds or something like that, just to make it look a bit more like a hide of some description. And yeah, pretty happy with the build altogether. Next, we'll do our waterfall. So this I wanted to make look like a man-made kind of structure. So we're going to put in our water first, and then I'll be able to integrate a new kind of concrete base with some grids in it where the water is quite clearly coming from, which I really like doing. I do like creating natural waterfalls. I think they do take a lot more time, and like here you would only really get a natural waterfall coming from the opposite side, where the actual hill and the rock formations are kind of just to the top of your screen on the right of where I'm building right now. Here, it definitely needs to be something that's a little bit man-made, unless we kind of worked out some sort of pipe work from the Wild Africa habitat, which is directly opposite this one, that would come through into this part of the zoo. But I didn't want to do that, and I quite like making these kind of concrete. You see this in the Northlands National Park series that I run as well, where we have our king penguin and grey seal habitat, where I have the concrete posts and stuff put in place and then make these grids where the water is quite clearly coming from, as if it's being pumped into the habitat itself. And I like doing that sort of thing. I like the clash between man-made architecture pieces and the nature itself, and I think it's important to get all of those things kind of working in tandem. It's one of the things that I really like about the game, being able to bridge this gap between natural and man-made structures. And then it was just a case here of finishing off the edges here. I didn't really like that it was just squared off, so I made some angled pieces for the left and right hand sides of the build, just to make sure that it looked like it was something that was feasible and actually doable. And I may actually put in like a little staff gantry that runs all the way along this side of the habitat. I think that might be something that would be quite nice. Obviously, it wouldn't be usable because the staff have no reason to go up there, but I may put like a little gangway going all the way around here to that area to give like a little hint that if maintenance needed to be done, it was doable by the staff that are on site and in situ. Last thing I wanted to do was hook up some cameras to a notice board so that people can see what's going on in our little burrows. As you will notice when we do the actual walkthrough of this habitat, we've already had some action in those little burrows. One of our meerkats has given birth to a new litter, and yeah, it's really cute and really cool. And I do like the burrow cams. It would be really nice though if they finally integrated actual all webcams into this sort of thing. So here we go. It's time for a little tour. So I could have done with getting a little bit closer so you could actually see the interior of the habitat on this little flyby. But, you know, you can see the guests having a good time. They're able to see everything that's going on down there. And hopefully they'll be enjoying the audio descriptions that we've got and the burrow cams. Next up, we're going to go into our staff view here. So the staff will come in here and go down this staircase into the main resting spot for our aardvarks. I haven't yet seen them use the burrows, and it may be because I've knocked some of the pathing to skew on that one, or there are just too many bedding bits down there that I could get rid of, and again turn that into the storage area that I was hoping to do. Here's a little meerkat going for a run, and this meerkat is actually pretty important because it's going for food right now. But she's also about to have a baby. We're going to go into the burrow cam now, and here we are with the little babies popping up little by little. I think they are 5 or maybe just the 4 in total. And just have a little swoop round and you can see all of the other little guys. There's 4 of them, yep. But they're super cute. This aardvark decided that he would just fall asleep in the water trough, you know, as they do. And he's kind of just having a little sniff around there, blowing some bubbles. I love the way the meerkats, their playful nature is really well captured in the game, actually. Aardvark's having some food. I think we do have a baby on the way as well, and I really like the way that these two started walking together. Like dogs, I guess, in a way. Their movements. And yeah, very cute, very cute. This one thought about going outside in the snow for a little bit, but then he was like, no, it's too cold. I'm going back in. I'm going to bed. That's pretty much how I feel. I identify with these aardvarks very, very much. One of them did eventually get adventurous and decided to go for a little paddle around in the cold. Probably not the best idea. And once the snow had cleared, we were back here as the sun rises over this nice habitat. And you can see the way that we've removed all of the long grass. You can really see a little bit more of the habitat. And it makes those rocks that we've put in look a little bit more like they are actually supposed to be there rather than they've just been plonked down. Obviously, there's a lot of long grass requirements here, so we've had to move them to other areas of the habitat, like where there are trees. And look at those meerkat babies coming over to the mum and dad. I love the way that the breeding pairs kind of put their hands on each other's shoulders and stuff, like giving them a little hug. There's one there. Are you okay, mate? It's okay. We're fine. And here's our baby aardvark having a little pad around. And off he goes for a little jog towards us in a moment. There we are. And this view, just a nice overhead view of the rest of the habitat. A couple more things I could do here, but I'm really happy with how it all turned out, and I hope you guys are too. Thank you all for watching. I will see you on the next one. It's been nice to do some shorter videos here, and I hope to bring you more soon. Bye bye.